Hi, Tony Shark from the Chicago Rocker with you. You know, back in the day when we used to do the printed version of the Chicago Rocker, every month we would have a feature in it that was called Character of the Scene. It was an interview with someone who was not necessarily a musician, but was musical. Somebody who had a service that they could help support the bands or their friends with that was an actual help to the whole scene. So I wanted to try to do that again, and I couldn't think of anybody who was probably more deserving of that than my guest today, who happens to be Ellyse from Ellyse of Rock Styles. And the reason I thought I'd bring her on here is she's been doing it throughout the entire history that I've done the Rocker. And she's got all kinds of stories and has helped a lot of different people in the scene through the years. And while you may think that it's a hairstyling situation, it's much more than that. It's sort of a support for the different musicians that have done this. So glad to have you here, Ellyse.
Thank you for having me.
I guess we'll start with some background. First off, let's find out actually where your shop is at. Where is your shop?
Okay, we're in Wheeling, Illinois, and our address is 749 West Dundee Road. Shall I give the phone number for it?
Sure.
Sure. 847-808-STYLE. That's 7895. There you go.
And how long have you had the shop?
We opened in 1994.
And
We've been rocking ever since.
Right. And
before then, of course.
Before you opened your own shop, you had something. You were doing this other places too, right?
Yeah, I started out with a little salon in the house. My mom let me have one in the basement. My first apartment, I brought the salon chair and sort of set up while I was waitressing and trying to meet people and get clients together, and just sort of evolved from the rock and roll bars to the rock and roll haircuts.
So
our own shop.
You were waitressing where?
I waitressed at Thirsty Whale, one of the places, and I was at Haymakers ahead of that, but I wasn't old enough to waitress, so I was working in the coat check back then.
And you were just sort of like in the background trying to not be noticed at that point, right?
I think I probably always wanted a little bit to be noticed. We were lucky enough to be able to socialize with the bands that played in the bar, and eventually got people to get their hair cut in the bathroom.
Really? Anybody you can mention?
I can tell you the one time I forgot my scissors was when Joe Perry was there getting his show. He said, "Oh, I can use a trim," and of course I never forgot my scissors after that.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Oh, many people.
Who'd you see?
Who did I see? Well, my 21st birthday, I got to see Queensryche and Twisted Sister. That was the day I was legal to actually work in the bar. They all knew it, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were a lot of different acts that went through Haymakers, though.
A lot of them. I think that's my husband's band. He was in the band Eric Steele at the time.
And your husband is actually your business partner.
Absolutely.
And his name?
Bruce Hausfeld. And he wanted the shop to be named after me because people knew me. It's a second career for him. He went to school, so we can do this together.
And so the two of you work at the salon together?
Yes.
So you started this, you said in 1994.
94 we opened.
And have you always catered to just a rock and roll clientele, or?
Well, I think we cater to anybody that comes in. I always had the motto that you don't have to be a rock star to be treated like a rock star, and everybody wants that rock star treatment. And over the years, we've just reached out to people, especially through Facebook, able to connect with people we had lost touch with and help lend ourselves to charities and different causes to help people out, and just kind of aligned ourselves with the rock community, I think.
Well, Facebook is a relatively new phenomenon over the last decade or so. How did you used to get the word out back before that?
Oh boy, I didn't even have a smartphone until about 2.5 years ago. Just walking up to people very outgoingly and handing a business card or a matchbook with our name. Hello, I am Ellyse. You need a haircut? This is where I'm at. And we still do that pretty often. If you see the matchbooks around, you'll know that we've been there.
And so you would just go from show to show and do this?
As much as we can, yeah.
So you've been doing it for a long time now. What would you say is the difference between, back in the day and now?
Back in the day and now, I could tell you when it turned. It turned probably just after we opened our shop. I was before we had the shop, I would go down to Dan Matchnick and work with the photographer and do the hair and makeup for the bands. And when the grunge scene took over, Dan called me and he said, they don't want to have hair and makeup. They just want to wear a skull cap. They don't want to shave. They don't want to look good. I'm not avoiding you. That's just the way the music scene had turned at that time. We're very lucky that didn't last forever.
That's when our buddy Kurt Cobain killed heavy metal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. So when did you see it start turning around again?
Oh, boy. That's a good question. When did we? I feel like there's always another young generation that comes through. We had people that used to come in all the time that sort of disappeared to have kids. And then other people that had been disappeared are bringing their kids in now. We got, they take off their baseball hat. I don't have any hair, but here's my son. He's a musician too. And now we're getting the original ones are finding their way back as well with other services.
I find the same thing happens in the concert world, that a lot of the guys played and then they sort of stopped when they had the family and the kids, and then the kids grew up and then they decided to come back and start playing again. And so who are some of the people that you've actually worked with on the local scene? One
of the newer bands that we're familiar with, I'll mention Veilside, because they had shouted out about the autism benefit years ago. And I'll be honest, I was a little nervous. I didn't know them. And Ron Thomas put a little kiss on my cheek and said thank you for helping. And we all became friends back then. And we support that function every year. We're always there. We throw some gift certificates into the raffles to help raise money for a good cause.
And some of the other musicians around?
Oh, boy. I don't want to leave anybody out. I'm almost embarrassed.
Well, how about if I bring up a couple?
Okay,
I think you've worked with people like Michael Badio, right?
Absolutely.
And isn't he one of the guys that started some of the things with you?
Yeah, back in the Haymakers days, actually it was the bass player from Holland that probably introduced me to everybody in the band. They were going to do an audition for the record company, and they asked if I would come down and do some hair for them. And boy, did we do some hair. I think Tommy Holland's hair was this big that day when we styled it out. But yeah, they did get the record deal, and that was, kind of the first little notch on the Rock Styles wall. Which I want to mention with this real quick is one of the places I worked burnt down, and I lost a lot of pictures. And a lot of musicians have been really nice at helping us replace them. When we first opened our shop, I didn't know what we were going to put on the wall. I was at the record stores buying posters to hang. Now there's barely a spot on the wall that doesn't have a picture. So our shop is a collaboration of all the faces that have been through the doors.
So I guess Facebook allowed you to reconnect with these people and put the word out then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if anybody's out there that has been to you before that hasn't given you anything, they should try and
They should try to shoot it to us and come hang it on our wall.
And do you have your own page?
Yes, we have a Facebook page that's just Facebook Rock Styles.
Just straight Rock Styles?
Rock Styles.
Okay. Do you have a website?
Rockstyles.com. And it has a direct link to Facebook in case you can't find us on Facebook. You can go to the website and click on the little icon and it'll take you there.
How about some other people that have come through your shop?
Other people who have come through the shop. Well, a lot of the bands that are getting noticed now, Circle Switch is one of the bands. Eddie Guns was one of the original rockers from back in the day. And we've taken these guys from short hair to long hair, back to short hair again. Mm-hmm. And we're very proud of their success. I'm drawing a blank right now. Think of any bands you want to mention.
I know Dave Schenkel always talks highly of you guys.
Okay, there you go. David Schenkel's another one.
So, in talking about some of the people that you've done from the local scene, I'm just trying to think of people that have told me that you've worked with them. I think, you said the guys from Bombs Away. Anybody specific?
Well, Mike Kurtz has been a very loyal friend and client for all the years.
And he's in Half Bitten Moon, and now he's going to be working with Kevin Lee, from what I understand.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
And when we did our grand opening party, we had some bands come in and play. oh my God, so many years ago, 1994. And they were one of the bands that played then. And we just had a 20-year anniversary. Now we passed the 21-year mark. But our 20-year anniversary party, they were nice enough to lend themselves to play for our party. This time we didn't shake the pictures off the wall and have it in the salon. We ended up having it a couple doors down at a place that was nice enough to let us use the room, and there's PA.
Anybody else in particular that you
Well, I
can
was
think
going to
of?
say in our one ad, we have a group picture where we're all pointing. It started out as three girls talking, and then Jimmy Barnes came by to take some pictures, and it turned into sort of a Charlie's Angels. And then everybody jumped in, and it sort of turned into the David Schenkel point, and it became the group shot that is kind of famous all around now. It's in the Entertainer every month. We're going to have another party just to put some new pictures together.
Now, I remember Bruce used to be in a band a while back. What was the name of his band?
His band was Eric Steele, and we met at the Whale originally.
And they were real popular back then, weren't they?
They were. They were definitely one of the draws for the Whale.
And what did he play?
Guitar and vocals.
I see. And so, is that another kind of draw that he can talk to the musicians about music too?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, other people. Anybody else you can think of?
Off the top of my head, you had mentioned some people. I was thinking, like Jim Irwin was a friend of ours, and
Jim Irwin from TNT.
TNT Chicago.
So, going forward, what do you think is going to be the next trend? What do you keep going to these hair kind of places, or the conventions and things? Do you see anything coming up that you see in the future?
Well, I think we're getting out of that grunge back into the pretty looks. The thing I've noticed personally is it looks like all the country bands are copying the metal looks, and the metal looks are looking like the bikers that used to look like country. I think it's just kind of working itself around. I think we're going to see guys in tight black pants again, and girls with big old hair. I think it's going to take a turn back to where it was in the 80s. It looks like the hair shows we're seeing a lot more hair extensions and volumizing. For past years, it looks like everybody's been kind of making their hair flat and dirty, and I think the rock and roll looks definitely reflect that.
Well, as I say, the character of the scene situation isn't just about the service that they provide. One of the things I've always noticed about Ellyse and Bruce is I go to a lot of shows, and I constantly run into them at different places, probably a couple different times a month or several times a month. And that's sort of an arbitrary type of situation where, they could be anywhere, and we just sort of end up at the same shows at times. And it's the support that you give these musicians and their friends that actually make you one of the characters of the scene. And I really appreciate you coming out, and I really appreciate the way you support local music. So thank you very much, Ellyse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
'Cause I'm a rocker.